Well, never mind all that stuff, because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered. Yeah, I know, amazing. But that means it's time for...
Living your life and you're feeling low. You don't know what is true. You don't know what's true. So you quick flip through the channels to watch Sunny on The View. Oh my God, the stuff she says is dumb. Where the hell they get this woman from? She's a host who's always crass and lame, with lots of nonsense to proclaim.
Sunny Hostin just went full meltdown mode. And no, it's not Mercury in retrograde. Greg Gutfeld called her out so hard, even her teleprompter looked like it wanted to walk off the set. The hypocrisy blasted wide open. The drama off the charts. Tissues flying off shelves faster than you can say double standard. But listen to this. As Gutfeld laid into her with receipts and razor-sharp sarcasm, Hostin tried to keep her cool, but the cracks were showing. You could practically hear the producers scrambling behind the scenes. If you've ever wanted to witness someone unravel faster than a knockoff wig in a wind tunnel, this was the moment. A live TV showdown so intense, even daytime audiences were left clutching their pearls. You won't believe what she said after the camera stopped rolling.
Make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly, it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
Sunny Hostin finally cracked, folks, and not just the usual kind of cracking that happens daily on The View, when someone dares to ask a question more complicated than what's your favorite color. No, this was a total high-definition, 4K, Ultra HD, slow-motion televised breakdown, and it was all courtesy of one man, Greg Gutfeld. But it gets crazy. In the last 2 minutes, Gutfeld managed to expose more hypocrisy than The View has managed to ignore in the past 2 decades. The studio went silent, jaws dropped, and even Hostin seemed to forget which camera to look at. It wasn't just a takedown, it was a masterclass in calling out double standards, live and unfiltered.
So, Sunny, I bet you haven't been in a supermarket since COVID for about 3 years.
I haven't been in a supermarket since COVID. For about 3 years. That's when I discovered Instacart, and I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs. You know those big Bounty towels you don't want to carry.
Those from Costco.
Somebody else goes.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable. Hey, I'm an but at least I tip.
It all started like any
normal Tuesday on The View, which, for those unfamiliar, means the show opened with all the usual group therapy energy, loud affirmations, relentless back-patting, and a collective delusion that they're somehow saving democracy one misinformed hot take at a time. Sunny Hostin, in her usual role as the show's self-proclaimed legal expert, though she plays it about as accurately as a teenager plays Guitar Hero, enthusiastically but terribly, was front and center, dishing out deep insights like everything bad is someone else's fault, and facts are optional if you say things passionately enough. But that's not all. If you've never had the pleasure of watching The View, just imagine the comment section of a political Facebook page come to life. Hosted by people who once skimmed a Wikipedia article about the Constitution and now think they're law professors. In that setting, Sunny fits right in. She is considered the group's voice of reason, but only if your definition of reason includes shrieking threat to democracy anytime someone dares to challenge her latte-fueled worldview.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's how she took the...
But then Oh, sweet karma. Greg Gutfeld decided to get involved, and that's when the real fun began. Now, Gutfeld isn't exactly what you'd call polished in the traditional sense. He's more like the smartass at a dinner party who finally says what everyone's been thinking but is too polite or too afraid to say out loud. And it gets crazier. Apparently, no one warned Sunny that sarcasm is still legal in most states, because the second Gutfeld started rolling out her greatest hits of Hypocrisy, she folded faster than a deck chair in a hurricane. One minute she was preaching from her moral high ground, and the next she was fumbling for comebacks while blinking like someone had just unplugged her Wi-Fi. The audience? Stunned. The panel? Speechless. Sunny? Absolutely rattled.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune. For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Firstly, let's talk about Sunny's magical ability to demand civil discourse, the kind where everyone smiles and nods just as long as you agree with her 100%. This is the same Sunny Hostin who just weeks prior casually labeled half the country as a roving band of democracy-destroying goblins. Civil discourse? Sure, but disagree with her and suddenly you're an accomplice to murder. At Sure Logic, a beautiful disaster of courtroom drama meets middle school lunchroom politics. But Greg wasn't finished. Oh no, he went full forensic accountant on her, pulling up receipts like he was auditing her entire public career. One minute, Sunny's passionately decrying the horrors of family separations at the border. The next, her preferred administration does the exact same thing. And suddenly, it's not evil anymore. It's complicated policy nuances that us mere mortals just wouldn't understand. Hypocrisy isn't just dabble in it. She practically embroidered it on a decorative throw pillow.
I'm gonna milk this till the end of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm gonna go, slave owner! Kat, I just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise. Do you think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better. Okay, here's
Greg laid it all out. No fluff, no filter, just facts with a side of biting sarcasm. He exposed how Sunny's outrage works like a light switch. Instantly on when a conservative so much as sneezes, and conveniently off when a liberal face plants into the Constitution. She's the type to demand investigations into the ethics of someone's tweets, while passionately defending politicians who couldn't spell ethics if you spotted them the E and the T. But it gets even crazier. As Gutfeld dismantled her contradictions one by one, the audience of The View responded like the loyal congregation they always are. He could have handed them a full-color photo album of Sunny's greatest hits in Hypocrisy, autographed by Sunny herself, and they still would have booed him for spreading hate. Because on The View, facts are offensive if they come from the wrong mouth.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there.
Naturally, Sunny did what every modern TV personality has down to a science. She played the victim faster than you can say audience sympathy. With a trembling voice and the well-rehearsed tears of someone who's definitely attended media training 3 times this year, she transformed Gutfeld's sharp criticism into a sweeping attack on all women, all minorities, and probably a few rescue puppies for good measure. Because when you can't win the argument? Just expand the battlefield until you're wading knee-deep in emotion and outrage. But listen to this. This is the same Sunny who spent years casually slandering millions of Americans from the safety of her ABC throne, labeling, judging, and moralizing with zero hesitation. But the moment someone holds her accountable, suddenly it's time for the waterworks. She wept not because she was wronged, but because someone dared to point out that she contradicts herself more often than a motivational speaker with commitment issues. It was emotional gymnastics so over the top, it deserved a gold medal if Olympic judges scored based on pure, unfiltered lack of self-awareness.
Joy Behar gets racism. After all, she's been black on Halloween. Yeah. But Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. But that is convenient, right? It's like one of my aunts dies every time Brian Kilmeade wants to hang out. Maybe Joy needs a full day to read her hate mail, and that's just from the rest of the cast. So Scott had to deal with Sunny Hostin and her typical self-righteousness.
And The View? Oh, they circled the wagons faster than cowboys in an old Western. Except instead of defending against bandits, they were shielding Sunny from the terrifying menace of being fact-checked on live television. Whoopi Goldberg even chimed in with a rousing pep talk that basically boiled down to, remember, facts are just a social construct if you feel strongly enough about it. The producers reportedly scrambled behind the scenes, worried about Sunny's emotional well-being, as if being held accountable for public hypocrisy isn't just another Tuesday for anyone in the spotlight. You'd think she'd be used to it by now. But it gets even crazier. This wasn't just another debate gone sideways. This was Greg Gutfeld doing the unthinkable, pointing out that the emperor had no clothes while the emperor sobbed into her designer coffee mug. Social media predictably had an absolute field day. Within minutes, Twitter, or X for those keeping up, was flooded with memes. One especially savage post showed a picture of Sunny with the caption, "Strong opinions, weak spine." Another featured her mid-cry on The View, tagged with, "When you realize receipts don't lie." Even people who normally avoid politics, like expired gas station sushi, started noticing, because when you spend years preaching about civility while casually trashing half the country, guess what? People remember. And when the receipts start rolling, well, not even 1,000 sympathetic monologues can make those disappear.
But unlike this chick, we didn't think it was the best thing that could have happened to us. Although it did get Joy Behar to wear a mask. People, you make me sick. It's funny, her being named Joy is like me being named ugly.
What made it even more delicious was watching The View scramble to reframe the entire debacle in real time. Suddenly, this wasn't about Sunny Hostin's blatant hypocrisy. Oh no. This was about protecting women from public attacks. It morphed into a dramatic stand against bullying because apparently pointing out glaring contradictions with a touch of sarcasm now qualifies as a federal hate crime. But that's not all. In reality, The View has become a safe space for ideas that have never been challenged by anything resembling adult conversation. Sunny and her co-hosts aren't looking for debate. They're hosting a daily self-esteem seminar disguised as political commentary. The second someone enters the room armed with logic, consistency, or heaven forbid sarcasm, the whole operation collapses faster than a dollar store umbrella in a hurricane. Instead of engaging with the actual points Gutfeld raised, the show doubled down on emotional theater, desperately clinging to the narrative that being fact-checked equals being victimized. But the internet wasn't buying it. Neither were the viewers, who've seen this act before. Loud moralizing until someone pushes back, then cue the tears and the cries of injustice.
Did you watch the whole thing or just the parts that I sent you?
I watched it. Obviously, just the parts that you said. Did I watch a whole episode of The View?
No woman can do that unless you're stupid. But
I have a job.
Here's the thing. How can they call themselves progressives when they keep saying that nothing has progressed? Then it's on them.
Right. I just wish I could have, what I would have watched if I could, would have been Joy Behar watching that.
Yes.
And being like, I totally made the right call. It was not an accident that they had him there on her day off.
Yes.
When she was, presented herself as the, expert on systemic racism.
Sunny's meltdown wasn't just dramatic, it was inevitable. She's been building her tower of hypocrisy for years, stacking it brick by brick, one contradictory statement at a time. And Greg Gutfeld, he did the unthinkable. He sneezed, and the whole thing came crashing down in glorious Hydonation fashion. But listen to this. Because no modern meltdown is complete without a rebranding campaign, Sunny quickly shifted gears. Cue the teary-eyed sermon about growth and being brave enough to be vulnerable. Translation? Please forget I just got caught playing Calvin Ball with my principals on live TV. It was a masterclass in damage control, complete with emotional buzzwords and vague appeals to personal evolution. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld just kept doing what he does best, winning without breaking a sweat. No yelling, no grandstanding, just that smug, unbothered smirk that drives the professionally offended absolutely insane. He knows exactly how the game works. The minute you point out the emperor has no clothes, you're suddenly accused of attacking body positivity. And poor Sunny, she's stuck in a loop now. Every time she tries to climb back onto her moral high horse, someone inevitably brings up that tiny little incident, the one where she melted down faster than butter in a microwave. Confronted with her own words, her contradictions, and her emotional acrobatics, she's gone from daytime host to living meme.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist. You see?
You see, this entire saga is a perfect eternal example of what happens when emotional manipulation finally runs headfirst into actual accountability. In a just world, The View would use this moment to pause and reflect, maybe even consider inviting guests with real differing perspectives, to encourage genuine debate, to rediscover the lost art of adult conversation that doesn't require a fainting couch every time someone voices a dissenting opinion. But let's be honest, it gets worse. The odds of The View embracing intellectual honesty are about the same as Sunny Hostin winning a Pulitzer Prize for political courage. It's just not happening. Instead, get ready for a string of episodes filled with emotional support segments, Lamaze guided breathing exercises, and maybe even a 3-part special titled Why Feelings Are More Important Than Facts, an Exploration. And Sunny, well, she'll keep clinging to the moral high ground, mistaking altitude for integrity. She'll continue delivering impassioned speeches about how truth matters, all while treating actual truth like it's radioactive waste. Because in her world, consistency is optional and accountability is a personal attack. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld will keep doing what he does best, calmly, sarcastically reminding America that not only is the emperor naked, he's also demanding a standing ovation for his wardrobe.
More time to talk. And I thought Will Smith wouldn't let a black man finish. If her IQ was half as high as her smugness, she'd be Einstein. And later it got weird after Whoopi Goldberg asked a question and Sunny chimed in again.
If nothing else, Sunny Hostin's Meltdown gave us all an unexpected gift. A glorious, high-definition reminder that hypocrisy always eats itself alive. You can only lie to yourself and your audience for so long before reality shows up with a mirror and someone in the back starts laughing. And boy, did we laugh. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just about being exposed. It wasn't even really about politics anymore. What we witnessed was the inevitable collision between fragile egos, performative outrage, and the cold, unflinching wall of truth. Sunny didn't just unravel, she showcased exactly what happens when someone builds their brand on moral superiority, only to have the receipts dragged out live on national television. In the end, The View spun the wheel of daytime drama, and this time, it landed squarely on humiliation. A meltdown disguised as victimhood, a lecture disguised as vulnerability. And the audience? They saw it. We all saw it. Because once the curtain gets pulled back, There's no unseeing the show behind the show.